I wanted to make a video before we started reviewing our G3 style and Cetme roller lock battle rifle reviews. So I wanted to say something that's important, and when I do these videos I'm going to devote some time into properly cleaning the weapons, because back in the 80s, long before many of you may have been born, they had some trouble down in Central America. And at the time there was a magazine called Soldier of Fortune magazine. And they did a lot of interesting articles. And we all love destructive testing of firearms. You see it on YouTube all the time. People crunching up PSA daggers, or the one that they really like to wreck is the High Point 9mm, where they go and do all kinds of stuff to it or whatever. And back in the day, and another thing, I did own at one point in time, back in the early 80s, and that I had an HK 91 and an HK 93. Okay, those were the street legal civilian copies of these guns, semi-automatic only, built by H&K in West Germany at the time, and I owned both of them. Now, whenever they had that safety bill or something that banned assault rifles, that's when all the foreign-made guns that were a semi-automatic version that were made in Europe, the French had one, and you could get all kinds of stuff on the market. It was hard to find, but they did make them. But after that point, all the companies stopped making them. Okay? But I've owned them. I've had the actual real deal. Okay? And I'm going to bring that in when we compare. But anyway, going back to the Soldier Fortune thing. So they decided that they were going to go down during this insurgent war in Central America, and they were going to examine some of the weapons they were capturing from the guerrillas, or whoever they were, rebels, whatever you want to call them. So they went down, and the three main guns they were going to look at was the G3 variation, which was very common. The reason is the stamped sheet metal and everything, a lot of countries were using this rifle. So the G3, the M16, and the AK-47. And they wanted to see how they held up in the absolute worst conditions, with untrained troops in a jungle environment, with no maintenance, and with people with no training. How did these guns hold up and last in that environment? And it was realistic. There actually was a conflict going on. And, whenever they have a battle with the rebels and they run off, any of the weapons left or whatever, they'd examine them. Okay? So when they went down there, the article went on to say, and they didn't really have any photographs, they just described what they seen. Out of the three weapon system, the first one that would just, they said, have a catastrophic failure, okay, and be wrecked, was the G3. The reason is, this gun must be cleaned and maintained meticulously, or it will eventually gum up, screw up, and then, blow up. Okay? You have to clean it. If it gets dirty, if it gets the parts rust. And the reason this is a problem with these civilian models, or these remakes, whatever you want to call them, is now Atlantic Firearms is advertising nitrated barrels so they don't rust, so you don't have to clean your gun immediately and all this other stuff. And it is true, if you fire these and leave them a day or two, it already screws up, starts staining the bolt, and rust starts forming on the German-made ones. Okay? It's something about this blowback operated system. You have to keep it clean. Okay? It's as simple as that. So the first ones to go were the G3s. Now, we get to our favorite, which this isn't actually an example. What was there was the older M16s. This is an A1. The early M16s with triangular handguards. The M16 rifle system was hated by a lot of people. You have to remember, back in the 70s and 80s, people didn't like this gun, okay? There are a lot of issues with it. All of these guns are inexpensive, mass-produced guns compared to something like the M1 Garand, FN-FAL, and the M14. These were all the low-cost alternatives. The stamped sheet metal frame, G3, the aluminum direct impingement M16 was the United States is post-World War II. This is the way to go. It's inexpensive. It's easy to produce. We can make a lot of them. Well, how did they hold up? The G3s failed first. M16s, what I've seen is this parkerized finish after time of people handling it, holding it. I've seen these guns where the metal is like a gray or white color. They've actually rubbed the finish off of the gun itself. Just rubbed it off. This is all white. And the salt, because this is a carry handle, the salt and sweat from the hands will actually eat through the aluminum where you can see the internal bolt carrier and the bolt parts. Okay? That's how bad they got. So the second one to get to the point where it failed, wouldn't work, and totally just had holes in the receiver and everything. Number 2 was the M16 rifle system. Next in line for failure. But the winner of this contest or theory was the AK-47. It takes an awful lot to put one of these out on commission. I mean, chrome line bores can rot out and get rusted. I've seen that, okay? Under extreme conditions, and it takes a lot to get these guns to stop, okay? It's just the way they were designed. They were designed to be a very blunt, almost indestructible weapon. They can be destroyed, but I've seen pictures in that same magazine down in Africa. You can fire this where the stock was broke off, the dust cover was missing in the spring, and they're still hanging on to it with the pistol grip and the foregrip and shooting. Okay, it's still a lethal weapon. Maybe not accurate, maybe, but it can function with several parts missing. Okay, but yeah, that's what it comes down to, you know. So when they're neglected, left in a shitty environment and everything else, first one down for the count is the G3, next the M16, and last but least, and the one that hangs on, is the AK-47. So if you like shooting a gun and not cleaning it or, you know, maintaining it, this is the clone you should go with, you know, and kind of leave the AR-15s and these Cetme style guns or whatever these are alone. Alright, just a reason I wanted to iterate this is because I am going to talk about cleaning these guns, especially before we even shoot them, and cleaning them thoroughly. And I will make detailed videos showing that, just so you can enjoy these little pieces of history and keep the guns running trouble-free, okay? It is going to take a little bit of work and self-discipline and maintenance of the guns, but we should have fun with them, and I'll show you how to keep them running. Alright, hit the like button, subscribe, and stay tuned.